Welcome to the Bald Brad Show. It is Wednesday, March 6th, and Joe Biden, good old Joey, is still, is still the worst president in American history. And can I just say one more thing? Damn, this is a good cup of coffee this morning. Just curious on what you're all drinking this fine morning. Let us know in the comment section below. And Patriots, as always, it's great to be back with you on this fine Wednesday morning. And boy, oh boy, do we have a jam-packed episode for you all today. We're going to kick it off here with good old Joey making fun of the economy. In a nutshell, making fun of Bidenomics because everybody is experiencing what's called shrinkflation. And he brings up the Cookie Monster here and tries to just get through a sentence. Let's roll it.
In fact, some of the small snack companies, you won't you won't even notice what they're doing. When they charge you just as much for the same size bag of potato chips, only has a hell of a lot fewer chips in it. I'll tell you who did notice, the Cookie Monster. He pointed out his cookies are getting smaller, paying the same price. I was stunned when I found out that's what actually happened.
I bet you were, Mr. President. I bet you were. So Joe Biden's, again, joking about Bidenomics, how bad everything is. Well, this plays into kind of our lead story of the day. This one actually comes from the Wall Street Journal, and it's talking about the Biden strike force is coming for you. Now, the White House on Tuesday previewed what is sure to be the theme of President Biden's State of the Union address, which is on Thursday, by announcing a new, basically task force to crack down on unfair and illegal pricing. Now, what I'm curious on is, what is the requirements for something to be deemed as unfair? Because isn't that subjective? What is deemed fair to somebody might be deemed unfair to somebody else. So it's going to be fascinating how this is going to be broken down. And I would not trust Democrats to run this task force. And if you're a corporation, you better be worried. So the administration's new strike force, led by the Justice Department and Federal Trade Commission, will, quote, stop illegal corporate behavior that hikes prices on American families through anti-competitive, unfair, deceptive, or fraudulent business practices. Talk about a massive umbrella. Mr. Biden went on similar riff in last year's State of the Union to target what he calls junk fees. On cue, the White House Council of Economic Advisors on Tuesday said the administration's actions are already yielding billions of dollars in savings for Americans. I don't know about that because a lot of people are struggling just to buy groceries. And not only are you struggling to buy groceries, but you're also getting less for your buck when you buy those groceries. And it's brought up here during yesterday's White House press briefing by Ed, talking about shrinkflation, talking about the strike force in a second question, and basically asking, when inflation was 9.1%, Americans were really struggling. Why did you not implement this years ago? And it's going to be a common theme through this briefing here, through the two questions we have from Ed and then Peter Ducey of, why is it all of a sudden during election year, we're starting to see all these things from Biden, but we didn't see these things 2-3 years ago? Here we go.
Thanks, Green. So Cookie Monster posted on X that shrinkflation is making his cookies smaller. The White House official Twitter or X responded that blaming shrinkflation basically on companies. So does the president again believe that shrinkflation and inflation are solely a company problem, or do his policies play any role in that?
So also for my tweet, I believe we said C is for consumers getting ripped off, right? And the president has called on companies to stop taking advantage of Americans. He's been very clear about that. He's repeatedly called on large corporations, more specifically, to pass along their savings onto their customers. We've said that. We've been very consistent about that. And that includes ripoffs, such as shrinkflation. We see that. And
Why do businesses or corporations have to be forced to drive down their prices? Why not just have the consumer decide what product they want to get? Nobody's forcing anybody to buy Kellogg's, which is kind of in mainstream news recently for their hike of prices. Like, I see Kellogg's, don't get me wrong, I love Kellogg's. I love a good Frosted Flakes. I mean, I don't know if Lucky Charms is Kellogg's, but hell, I like the brand. But is it worth $6.99 a box of cereal? I don't think so. So I'll just go buy the store brand item for $2 to $4 cheaper. Nobody's making you buy these expensive brands, these name brands. I just don't think it's right for the government to intervene and tell a corporation or business what they can or can't sell an item for at some price. So I don't think this is good for not just consumers, but I don't think it's good for just the economy in general.
The size of a product, for those who don't know, gets smaller even as the price stays the same or increases. That's what we've been seeing. And so it's giving families less bang for their buck. And the president has said, and I'll quote him, the president said, Americans are tired of being played for suckers. And so the president's going to have the American people's back. That's what he's going to continue to do. He's going to talk about this.
Folks, just, do you feel that the president's going to have your back? Just, you've had 3 years of them. I'm just ask and let me know in the comment section below. Please, it does help support the channel. But do you feel that Joey has your back here? Do you feel like Mr. Biden, Mr. 46, has your back? Have you felt him have your back recently? A lot of you are paying more in taxes because of the interval change. A lot of you are paying more in taxes just because of what's going on here. A lot of you are paying more at the gas pump, at the grocery store. You lost your savings. You lost some of your retirement when he was in office. Let me know. Let me know if he has your back, you guys.
Not just shrinkflation, but other ways that he sees corporations are ripping off Americans. You're going to hear from him shortly about what he's doing next to deal with junk fees, and I think that's really important. That's what Americans want to see. They want to see their president fighting on their behalf.
And out of that competition council, the president is announcing that strike force. Why did it take the Cookie Monster to speak up, or an election year for this strike force to go? Why not do it a couple of years ago when inflation was 9%?
I disagree with the premise of your question there. It did not take the Cookie Monster. If anything, it feels like the Cookie Monster is responding to us and what we've been saying about shrinkflation. I can't believe I'm having a conversation about the Cookie Monster at the podium. But
well, it was your boss that brought it up. I mean, she's like, oh, I can't believe I'm talking about this. But the president's the one that brought it up. So Ed's just bringing up the fact that your boss, the leader of the free world, was on the podium joking about how great, or in other words, I guess how bad Bidenomics is. I couldn't really tell if he's talking about how great it was or how bad it was. The fact that you're paying more for a good but getting less of that good when you pay for more of that very good, which she brought up there in her rambling. But I'm finding it odd here that it almost seems like we're joking around, but oddly enough, I tend to laugh at everything. I know it doesn't seem like this on the show, but I love comedy. I laugh literally about everything. It just doesn't come across when I'm doing the show. Sometimes it does. Sometimes you guys, you laugh way too hard. You laugh too much. I love to laugh. Well, here, I just don't find it that funny. I mean, Americans are really struggling right now, not just to try and save, not just paying their bills, but also just to sit there and feed their family, their children. I mean, people are struggling. We're kind of making the joke here about Monster Cookie and Cookie Monster, whatever the hell they're talking about.
that's a good one. I'm glad you're awake. I'm glad you woke up for me. I know you were nodding off in the back earlier, but
why did it take so long to announce a strike force?
Dude, she just straight up called out that dude. This is why I say I don't understand why they're so nice to her, because she sits there and treats them like crap. She belittles them. She talks down to them. She doesn't answer their questions. She's actually lied to them multiple times, which we saw through the Twitter files when we covered here that at length, at least 5 times of what we know of. I just don't understand why they treat her with so much respect when they don't get that in return.
I mean,
When
look,
inflation was
here's
9%.
here's the thing. The President's Competition Council has been going on for some time now, right? He has taken this very seriously and finding ways to lower costs for the American people as we are obviously dealing with inflation, right? Obviously dealing with that because of what we are coming out of with the pandemic. So the president has taken actions. He's going to continue to do that.
Are we really going to use that pandemic as an excuse here in 2024? That happened in 2020, March 13th of 2020. It's been 4 years. Like, are we still going to? Oh, well, we're in a transition phase. We're still coming out of the pandemic.
I would say the strike force is just another way, along of many other announcements that this president has made in dealing with large corporations ripping off Americans, right? And dealing with how do we get rid of junk fees. And so that's what you're going to hear from the president. So to say that, now all of a sudden he cares about this is not true. It is a false premise. It's a false question, because the president has been dealing with this for some time now. And now he's making a new announcement on the strike force, and I think it's important. And so you'll hear more from him momentarily.
One more, if I may.
I just think it's government overreach at the end of the day, where the government gets to come in and decide what you as a business owner get to charge your customers. I just don't, I think that's a huge overreach. I think that's an overreach of whatever branch is going to yield this. And it seems like it's coming from the Justice Department and Federal Trade Commission. And furthermore, she keeps saying that these corporations are ripping us off. Look, I'm still able to get cereal. I'm just using it as an example. Nobody is forcing anybody to buy cereal. Like, you can get by with the essentials as long as you have protein, bread, and some veggies. You know what I mean? But I'm not feeling ripped off if I don't have to buy all this junk food. I don't have to buy the candy that's crazy prices right now. I don't have to buy Kellogg's brand of cereal, which is crazy prices right now. And I don't. I don't. I buy milk. I usually buy turkey. I have like a huge bag of rice that I utilize. I've always said this. You guys know me. I'm an average Joe American with a camera and a mic. I'm no different than any of you. I'm not better than any of you. I don't know more than any of you. I'm just here rambling, getting my thoughts down, not on paper, but on camera, and hanging out with fine patriots such as yourselves. But look, I'm frugal. I wear the same stuff on the show, the same hat I've had since the show started. Look, I'm not getting ripped off by anybody. Those that want to continually buy a bunch of junk food from these name brands, then sure, I could see them going, well, I feel like I'm getting ripped off. And I guess in a way that you are, but it's purely subjective. But I'm curious, what do you guys think? Do you like the fact that Biden administration, hell, even if it was a Trump administration doing it, I wouldn't like it. Do you like them putting through a strike force, telling corporations what they can and can't charge? Let me know in the comment section below. Well, folks, next up on the list, we got the man, the myth, the legend, Peter Doocy of Fox News, questioning Karine Jean-Pierre on, hey, you know, the president takes this whole border security thing so serious. Why is it that for like the first 3 years of him being in office, maybe 2 years, why did he never talk to the border chief, the guy that was handling the whole thing of the border? Like, how did that happen? And how does he take it serious if you never actually talked to him in the first place? Here we go.
Okay.
Be mindful.
Different topic. How's President Biden going to fix the border if he can go years without talking to the head of Border Patrol?
He was literally just with the chief of the Border Patrol, just this past Thursday in Brownsville, Texas. You all reported it. You all saw it. He was with the chief, Chief Owens, I believe.
The chief, who was in charge for 2 years before that, said, I've never had one conversation with the president or the vice president. How is that possible?
So one thing I will say about Chief, you're talking about Chief Ortiz.
This is Chief Ortiz. Yeah.
So he was invited, I believe, to participate in the president's first trip visit to El Paso, which was back in January of 2023, and he did not attend. He was invited, but he was invited. He did not attend. What I can say is that
I would imagine why he didn't attend, because of, I don't know, the massive surge that's taking place at the border. Look at it this way. There's 24 hours in a day. The dude has thousands of people pouring across the border. And he's the dude that's running the show down there, trying to appease the executive branch of basically not sitting there and having a border whatsoever. That's not my opinion. That's the executive branch's opinion of, hey, the border's secure, when in actuality it's not. And then they come out later and tell us it's not secure. So does he sit there and join the president on a 3-hour nap when he was at the border in El Paso? The president was only there for a couple hours. Or does he spend his time wisely and actually figure out the border? And by the way, just because you gave the dude an invitation doesn't mean that you're trying to solve or communicate with the guy. His quote was, he's never heard from you. You've never called the guy. You never gave him a handwritten letter. You never sat there and figured out what he wanted to do. Heck, you never flew him out to Washington, D.C. You never did any of that. But the fact that you give somebody an invitation, you guys, you're good. And I told you, there's a theme here. Like we saw in the last segment. Hey, why didn't you implement the strike force when inflation was 9.1% and the economy was struggling? Like, wouldn't that have benefited consumers in the way that you're saying it's going to benefit them now, when in actuality it's not going to benefit them? If anything, it has a possibility of harming them. And furthermore, if you're going to take the border so seriously, why are you waiting till election year, just like you're waiting for the election year on the strike force, to wait for an election year to go down to the border and actually see what's going on and meet with the border chief? And why weren't you willing to do it for the last 3 years? Why did it take 3 years to do it? Just a bunch of questions that aren't getting answered, which is typical from this administration. But it's totally insane that she's going to sit there and use the excuse, well, we sent them an invitation. Where do you hear a similar excuse like this from the White House? Oh, well, since day one, we put forward a comprehensive legislation plan to fix the border. But that was on day one. You haven't done anything since. So as I've mentioned, all you have to do, you guys, is send out an invitation. Create a piece of legislation. You talked about it. Never went through. Never made anything better. Never fixed anything. didn't actually get implemented, meaning regardless of the outcome, the fact that you spoke about it and you just threw it out there in the ether is good enough for this administration. And it's so good that they're going to actually brag about the whole thing and make it seem like they actually did something, when in actuality they either spoke about it or just threw it out there in the ether. That's good enough for them, and they're taking it serious.
You saw the president with the present chief, which I think is important because we are dealing with challenges at the border, because the president has make that a priority, worked with the Senate in a bipartisan way to come up with a way to move forward on the border on immigration. Republicans rejected it because of what the former president, Donald Trump, told them to do. Told them to reject that proposal. So the president is going to continue to be steadfast, focus on an issue that majority of the American people care about, which is the border. Let's not forget, if that policy had went into law, it would have been the toughest and the fairest bipartisan border security agreement in decades.
And last one.
Yeah.
Honestly, just let me know in the live chat right now or the comment section. Again, it does benefit the show, more so the comment section. Do you guys believe that? Do you believe it? Just take a moment to say no, yes. I know what the answer is going to be, but again, it supports the show. Need your help here, folks. Do you believe the president's taking this all seriously? Do you think he's losing sleep over it? Do you think he really feels the impact of shrinkflation? Do you really think he feels the impact of what's going on at the border?
Will President Biden publicly address Laken Riley's murder, allegedly at the hands of an illegal immigrant who was released by law enforcement multiple times on Thursday night? I know he's got a statement, but what about at the State of the Union?
Look, I do want, this is such a tragic story and obviously situation. This is someone's life that was lost, so I do want to always acknowledge and extend our deepest condolences to her family and to her friends and the people who...
She can't even look at the camera. She's having to read out of a binder for this.
Who loved her. And so want to always be sure to say that, and because it's so tragic. Look, I don't have anything to share about the president's speech as it relates to that particular question that you have. But we want to always be sure that we lift up the families who have lost their loved ones in that way. And I would reiterate,
In what way? In what way are you lifting people up? This should have never happened. This should have never happened. You can't even look at the camera like you're talking to the family. You have to read it out of a binder. I guarantee you she's trying to figure out any which way she could sit there and spin this so she can actually answer the question. I guarantee you she's reading it out of the binder right now. Just watch. Just
asked me about the Border Patrol chief. The president was just there with the current chief, Owens. The president went to the border, obviously Bronzeville, Texas, to lift up the importance of doing something at the border. And I would be remiss if I did not continue to say that Republicans rejected a bipartisan proposal that came out of the Senate. And so if they truly, truly cared about what was going on at the border, if they truly cared about this immigration policies and trying to fix that, trying to move forward in a way where we have a tough and fair law, they would work with us on it. They wouldn't listen to the former president, who is clearly telling Republicans to reject it for his own political gain. And that's shameful. That's truly shameful.
I'm sorry, that's disgusting that you're going to actually flip the script and blame Republicans when you're talking about the death of an individual that was at the hands of an illegal alien, and you're going to sit there and actually ream Republicans on this whole thing when it's the Biden administration that sat there and has been lackluster on all of this. It's really just evil stuff coming from this administration. But hey, we should not be surprised. It's coming from Jean-Pierre. We've seen worse from her, but heck, you know what? That's probably a close second regarding that whole thing. Well, speaking of illegal immigration in the border, the Biden administration has finally admitted, which we've talked about here for years. We got a lot of new subscribers. We've been on this since day one. We've been talking about this whole thing again since day one. They finally admitted to flying 320,000 migrants secretly into the U.S. to reduce the number of crossings at the border and basically causing a national security vulnerability. You guys, we've actually shown, and again, we have a lot of new subscribers here and members. We have body cam footage of these flights, these from these security guards on these tarmacs, where these undocumented flights are coming through. And what they were doing was they were parking in the dark. They wouldn't come under the lights. And basically they escort these individuals, these migrants, onto the tarmac into undocumented vans. We've already covered, this is old news. Now they're finally actually admitting it. I mean, we would refer to this of them flying them under the dark in the night about a year and a half, 2 years ago. The long-time viewers of the Bald Brad Show are very aware of us talking about this here. So the Biden administration has admitted to transporting migrants on secret flights. Your taxpayer dollars are paying for this. Into the U.S., and lawyers for its immigration agencies claims revealing that the locations could create national security vulnerabilities. Customs and Border Protection has refused to disclose information about a program last year secretly arranging flights for thousands of undocumented immigrants from foreign airports directly to the U.S. I was called a conspiracy theorist for talking about all this. We had videos getting flagged from YouTube saying this was all wrong, that we're spreading misinformation. It's so remarkable how all the time we're conspiracy theorists, and when you just give it a little bit of time, then like a year later, 2 years later, all of a sudden the truth comes out. It's astonishing. Hey, vaccines are going to stop you from spreading the virus. No, it's not. It's not going to do that. Turns out we were right, but we were called conspiracy theorists for years. So this took place, and again, now the truth is out there, and we were 2 years ahead of the news cycle, folks. We were 2 years ahead of this, and we were reamed in the comment section by the left. Use of cell phone apps has allowed for near undetected arrival by air of 320,000 aliens with no legal rights to enter the United States. Again, this is not me saying it. I'm just reading the article. It comes after a controversy over a 2020 transportation program in which the administration used taxpayer dollars, their money, not going to veterans, not going to your roads, not going to the school system, not going to pay teacher salaries more, not going to build better buildings, roads, bridges, trains, auto, anything. No. Let's go to move migrants through the country on overnight flights. Now, part of that border security package that you keep hearing from Jean-Pierre, which isn't really a border security package for us, in so much as it is for Ukraine and Israel, giving humanitarian aid to various places as well. It's not actual border security for us whatsoever. And part of that package, which we've covered, is still a transportation of illegal immigrants from either the border to the interior of the United States or whatever state they actually choose. But it's also just to move them from one sector of the border to the other. So if you have an influx of migrants, say at El Paso, they'll move them from El Paso to, say, Brownsville, Texas, just to sit there and kind of relieve one sector and give an influx to another sector. That's partially what those taxpayer dollars will be going towards for that border security bill. And by the way, we don't have the money for this stuff. So these billions of dollars that we're throwing out there when we're $34 trillion in debt is on borrowed money. So not only are you going to sit there and pay the principal of, say, that $60 billion or whatever is being sent out, but you're going to pay interest on that $60 billion that we don't have. But let's just keep shelling out money left and right because we care for people. Look, we should care for people. But when you don't have money to care for people, how can you care for people? If you don't, what, you just supposed to continue to put everything on credit cards? Is that what we're supposed to do here on an individual level? Are we supposed to continue to put everything on credit cards? I don't think so. Not responsible, not realistic. Well, you heard us talk about shrinkflation, so I want to give a little bit of an announcement before we actually move into our next story. We are going to, at some point, I believe, probably next week, move this hour-long podcast, 30-minute podcast, however long it's going to be each and every day, to a members-only podcast, and then we'll have different videos coming out throughout the day that are 8 to 15 minutes in length, going over different news stories that weren't incorporated in the hour-long podcast, just so we meet both membership perks for you giving your hard-earned money to the show, but also giving, more content to those that, just don't either want to contribute, and that's absolutely okay, or those that just feel like they don't have the funds necessary to be able to become a member. So what we've done is now we have 3 tiers. Before, we used to only have 2. I made it the cheapest possible route I could that YouTube would allow me. So there's another membership option called Bald Brad Army. It's $1. It's not even $1. It's 99 cents. And my hope is that for those that said in email, but also comment section, hey, you know what? I'm struggling paying my bills, and I totally get it, you guys. So don't feel like you have to do this. But I wanted to create an avenue where we could sit there and have it behind a paywall because I feel protected doing that. And I know that might not make sense to a lot of people that weren't members or are not members, but there is a video that describes why I'm using that language. But I think making it the bare minimum of what I can do on YouTube, which is 99 cents, it doesn't go any lower than that. I feel like that's a kind of a fair option, you know what I mean? I understand $1 is still money, and I understand some people need that dollar to pay their bills. I fully get it. Please don't feel like I'm diminishing that idea, but that dollar gets you a month. You know what I mean? So you're talking a few pennies a day. I feel like some people that want to join the membership can join the membership now without paying the $4.99 option or the $9.99 option. If you guys even want to drop down a tier, feel free. Don't join, whatever you want to do. I just want you guys to know that it's out there, and now it's available for you to become a member. I mean, 99 cents is, I think it's a great deal, and you should still be able to access, again, our regular podcast here. So, again, there's a lot of people I think don't understand why we're doing that, but that's because you haven't been given the information. That information is behind a paywall, and it's there for a reason, but it's there for your the memberships now, so you can actually even go check out the video. Join us up, folks. Join us up. All right. Well, enough of me rambling. Enough of me trying to be a salesman here. Our next what do you call this article, news story headline is Blue Collar Town is being freaking shellacked and rocked as the nation's oldest gun manufacturer flees for a red state. They're gonna leave New York and go to a red state. Oh, and this is a little gun manufacturer that we've all heard of here before. So they're getting out of Dodge. This one's going to be quick here. America's oldest gun manufacturer, Remington, is officially closing its plant in New York this month and moving to Georgia. Folks, after, I can't even get it out of my mouth, more than 200 years in the Empire State. This place has been there for 200 years. And it's getting out of Dodge now. That just shows you how insane the left have gotten in New York, in California, where all these businesses are fleeing the red states. And we were told, conservatives don't know what they're talking about. Republicans don't know how to run businesses. They don't know how to put in the red tape the right way. No, we want to remove regulation. We want businesses to flourish. When you allow a business to flourish, they hire more employees. They can pay employees more money so you can go and buy your kids toys for Christmas or your wife something nice at Valentine's Day, or hell, just put food on your table. We just want people to prosper, business and individuals. It's not always going to happen that way. But this is what happens when you overstep your bounds, you overstep your authority. You're just going to have businesses that are going to leave. This is a lot of tax money. Heck, leaving, going to another state called Georgia. So Remington, you have Remington in Illinois. New York Mayor John Steffen told Fox News Digital in a Zoom interview ahead of the plant's closure, the phrase and sentiment is one of the mayor has repeated over the course of his time in office and before, even as an icebreaker while he was in college introducing himself to a professor and peers. Quote, it doesn't matter if you're manufacturing firearms here anymore or not. You can't erase history. And this plant will always be known as the home of Remington Arms, who has spent nearly all of his 57 years in this establishment. So it's just wild that not only is it a gun manufacturer, but it's also a business that's going to end up fleeing because of everything that's going on in New York City. Why would you want to stay? Even before this whole thing happened with Trump, with the real estate of the overvaluation of assets, which is totally bogus, by the way. You had like 5 or 6 generations come through this Remington factory. And because of everything that's going on with these Democrats and wanting to go after blue collar workers, blue collar establishments like these corporations or these manufacturers, they're just going to say, fine, we can't take it anymore. We're just going to go ahead and move. And by the way, all those people that have been there for 5 or 6 generations of employees just lost their job because you have the government that thinks that they know better than the business, just like you're seeing from the Biden strike force that is going to sit there and have a force go in and tell businesses what they can and cannot charge because they deemed it as unfair, which is purely subjective. So this is a historic loss for this area. And you know what? Good to Georgia for getting the business. I'm curious what Georgia's going to end up offering them. Maybe some of you know, but Remington plant is out of New York, and I think that's a great move for them. And I think it's a great move for pro-Second Amendment advocates. Well, speaking of other things that are getting rid of regulations and the Biden just completely overreaching here, you have a credit card late fees are being capped at $8 as part of a Biden crackdown on junk fees. So the federal regulators finalized a rule on Tuesday to cap most credit card late fees at $8 as part of a broader push by the Biden administration to eliminate junk fees. Now, I have a credit card, but again, I follow Dave Ramsey, so I actually don't even utilize it. The new card that was sent in probably about a year ago, I never actually even activated it. I pay everything cash. If I don't have money for something, I just don't buy it. I've never had a new car in my life. I've used a credit card before, but I've always saved up for like a large purchase and just put on the credit card and then paid it off so I could build up credit. But to be fair, you shouldn't be buying something on a credit card. I understand there's that theory, oh, well, you get miles and you get rewards and stuff like that. Just buy cash for it. So if you have late fees on a credit card, odds are you're probably doing something financially wrong, or you had already done a sequence of decisions that weren't financially responsible. We'll keep it at that. Well, the Consumer Financial Protections Bureau, hell of a name, estimates the new regulation first proposed in February 2023 will save families more than $10 billion a year by cutting fees from an average of $32. So it is a massive cut, but the new rule applies to large credit card issuers, those with more than 1 million accounts. These companies represent more than basically 95% of the outstanding credit card balances, in other words, the debt. But you have to understand, this is also one of the ways these credit cards make money. And so there are negative consequences to any sort of action that the government tries to implement, which I think is an overreach. And again, this is one of the mechanisms that credit card companies sit there and get us. So you have one here, the potential for increased late payments. Financial institutions argue that lower late fees might actually reduce the deterrent effect of such late fees, leading to more consumers paying late fees. You could have a reverse effect actually taking place here, where the credit card companies potentially could be making more money, having a negative consequence against the consumer because people feel, well, I was paying $32 in a late fee. Now I'm only paying $8. Well, I might as well just continue to be late. You could end up actually paying, I mean, in some cases more, but this could have broader implications for credit card management and financial habits. So again, 80% behavior when it comes to personal finance, 20% head knowledge. I tend to say 90% behavior, 10% head knowledge. Your what's called behavioral economics, in a nutshell, it's just the stupid things people do with money, has a bigger and broader impact than, say, something the Biden administration is doing. You're actually reducing the consequences of somebody's bad financial habits. And so when you reduce those consequences, you get more of what actually you're reducing, which is a bad habit financially from consumers and individuals. You also have impact on credit scores, by the way. So not only are you going to exacerbate the problem because you're lowering the fee, which means people believe that they can actually just keep incurring late fees, but it's damaging their credit score. So it's just going to hurt them in the long run. Furthermore, you have reduced revenue for credit card issuers. Late fees are a significant source of revenue for credit card companies. So reducing these fees could impact their profitability, which would lead them to actually seek alternative revenue sources and possibly affect the fees and interest rates for everybody. So they don't think about any of this, though. They just go, oh, they're going to cap it. Just cap it so people are better off. Not in all cases, and probably in majority of cases. And you also have legal and regulatory battles here. So as indicated in the article that we were just reviewing, it was indicated by the response from the financial industry and the U.S. Chamber of Commerce that this new rule could lead to just massive litigation here. The outcome of such legal challenge could cause broader implications for regulatory authority and consumer protection initiatives. And lastly, you have shifts in credit card offerings. Like, are you going to be able to get a credit card now because they're reducing the prices, meaning they're not as profitable, meaning they don't want to lend as much money as they could because they're not getting as much money in? So how can you keep lending if you're not getting as much money in as you were before? Credit card issuers might revise their offerings in response to reduced fee revenue. This could include changing the terms of credit card agreements, altering reward structures, or introducing new fees elsewhere to offset these losses. They're going to find a way, you guys. They're going to find a way. And so, yeah, he may have won the battle here, but I'm telling you, Biden's not going to win the war. And this is coming from somebody that is not, I'm not a fan of credit cards. I don't like credit cards. Like I mentioned, I don't use credit cards. But these businesses have found a way. They've lasted this long. And there's a lot of money to be had because Americans act silly when it comes to their personal finance. Again, that's why there's a whole thing called behavioral economics, a whole broad umbrella, which is a fancy way of saying it's the stupid things people do with money. And I hate to say it, I love America, I love Americans, but Americans suck with money. I mean, they do. There's a reason why on a federal level, we're $34 trillion in debt, but on an individual level, the vast majority of baby boomers don't even have a feasible amount saved for retirement. So this can go on for a long personal finance lesson, which I'm not going to do because you're going to fall asleep and it's the morning. But folks, that's today's episode. As I mentioned, we have a new membership tier, 99 cents a month for to be a part of the Bald Brad Army. So 99 cents a month gets you everything for when we move to a behind a paywall, just for the hour-long podcast. And then, like I mentioned, if you don't want to join, please don't feel like you have to. We'll also have separate videos that had nothing to do with the hour-long podcast, kind of uploaded throughout the day. talking about credit cards would be like a video. Going over the Biden administration with the 320,000 migrants might be another video. Say if we never talked about it in today's episode. But just want to make that aware out there. Again, $9.99. There's also a $4.99 option. And if you want to go super sane, there's a super fan package, $9.99, which some of you are part of. And hey, you help and support the show, and I really appreciate that. Again, as always, we got merch. Folks, if you're not drinking out of this mug, I don't know what you're drinking out of. There's no better mug to drink out of. You got the American flag on the back. You get a nice little glass on it. Folks, since we started doing products here, this is the only mug I've ever had. This thing goes through the dishwasher with me. It's a little stained. But let me tell you, folks, there's no greater mug than to feel patriotic drinking out of this bad boy each and every day with Bald Brad Show viewers. We got shirts, we got hoodies, we got stickers, we got it all at baldbrad.com. Everything is in the link in the description. And lastly, I'm doing a bunch of plugs here. I don't have sponsors. Might as well. We have another second channel. We have a second channel, folks. If you weren't aware, we do spooky adventures where we explore the paranormal, the unexplained, and the supernatural. We go over ghost videos. We talk about aliens sometimes. We talk about Bigfoot, all this fun stuff. Totally different than this political channel. Nothing to do with politics whatsoever. Just fun talking about conspiracy theories and getting scared and spooky ooky. It's a good family-friendly show. Would love for you to join. Go over and subscribe. Link is in the description down below. And with that being said, folks, I'll see you tomorrow here on The Bald Brad Show.